A lot of the work that I do is involving the whispers. And so I've been getting the question a lot lately. What or who are the whispers? That's not quite such an easy question to answer, but I'll do my best. In essence, they are what I call my guides. They are a collective of advanced beings. Some were human beings that reached an ascended state. Some never had a body. Others, I don't even know what they are. But they've reached a place in their ascension cycle, in their ascension growth, where they don't really have a need for the body. They don't really have a need for form. They exist as like a collective of consciousness, in a sense. And it does seem to be that they have sort of a Norse leaning to them about the Norse mysticism and Norse practices. And that may be just because of me and my years of study with the Norse practices. Now, the whispers have been with me since I was a child. My earliest memory is being on a playground in elementary school, just kind of doing the normal kid stuff, playing on the playground. But here I am having a conversation with these beings telling me about parallel worlds, about the way spirituality works, about the way to connect with other beings, about the multi-complexness of what reality is. And that's kind of a strange thing for a child to be learning about. Now, as I was growing, I was reading all sorts of books. I was studying, I was meeting people. My parents took me to a spiritualist church where there were seances in the church basement. My mom took me to psychic development classes at an early age. I was just a kid. But all the while, the whispers were with me. They were guiding, they were sort of refining the things I was learning and teaching me some really important things. For example, growing up in my parents' house, my room was in the basement. I was all alone with books and junk and all this stuff, plus my room. And the house was a very haunted house, spirits galore everywhere. They would change TV channels, turn on radios, all sorts of things. And I, like so many other people, was exposed to the horror movies, the scary TV shows that depict ghosts as these scary, dangerous, if not demonic things that are out to hurt you or steal your soul. And I was trying to pair what I was learning from the church, what I was learning from these psychic classes, what the whispers were telling me from to differentiate that from these very compelling and disturbing shows I was watching. So, needless to say, for much of my childhood, I was afraid of being alone in my room. I had to have a TV on to help create some sort of electromagnetic disturbance to keep the spirits that were there from bothering me and waking me up because I was sensitive. I was aware. I could hear them. I could communicate with them. And so, to help keep these spirits at bay and leave me alone, the TV helped out a lot. And that's where the whispers came in. They started teaching me about energy, about shifting energy, about changing energy, clearing energy, setting up barriers in the room, setting up wards and protective states. And at first I was a little unsure about that, but I started to practice it. I started to put it into motion. And sure enough, I've been able to get to sleep without the TV on for years. In fact, if I go to a hotel room, because I'm traveling to go to conventions or whatnot, I will always put these wards up because if I don't, I can't get a good night's sleep. But I put those wards up, clear that energy out, and I get to sleep nicely. And that's something the Whisperers taught me and something I carry forward in my teaching with students and with clients. And over the years, the Whispers have given me access to some deeper level studies about spirituality, about manifestation, about energies, again, parallel realities, and how we can interface with them. And I had to strike a deal with them because it was a lot of theory. It was a lot of interesting information, but I'm like, great, what do we do with it? How do I use it? How do I teach this? What do I do with it? So I had to tell them, cut it out with just the theory. Start giving me practical techniques, practical applications so that I could use this information. And lo and behold, they did. And it's something that is incorporated throughout all of my classes that I teach It's incorporated in the things that I'm working with one on one with clients. And it's an important part of my life and growth. They still talk with me, they still communicate with me. Another interesting time of my life is I went through a 3 year dark night of the soul. I made what at the time I thought was a bad choice, but looking back at it, it was the only choice that I had to make. And just like every dark night of the soul, this was a big one, but just like those big ones, everything came crashing down. I hit rock bottom. I almost lost the family. We did lose our home, but we were able to recover. And it took me 3 years of beating myself up, blaming myself, pulling myself down to really finally start to get through it. But what got me through it? The whispers. They never left me alone the entire time. They kept saying, here's something to work on. Here's trying this. Read this book. And I'm like, great, this is awesome stuff. Here are the techniques. I'm like, that's awesome. Now use them. And I'm like, yeah, tell you what, let me just write this down. Let me write another book. Let me put on some online classes and get out of here because this is too hard to handle. And they're like, no, 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 no. We didn't give this just for you to teach other people to use this. We gave it to you for you to use it, to get out of this dark place. And it really took some work because I didn't believe I was worth it. I believed it just was too hard to continue to carry on, but I gave it a shot. I started to practice what they taught me. I started to put it into motion. And the main emphasis they kept telling me the entire time for doing this is that this will be useful for so many other people, but the messenger has to be the message. I had to do this work myself to know how it works, to know what it feels like to pull myself out of that dark place so that I can use it to help teach other people. And thus, I started learning how to do shadow work, how to teach people to do shadow work, how to clear their own blocks, their limitations, their self doubt, even to get through those dark nights of the soul, because I know what it was like to go through that. The whispers, they still walk with me to this day. They still talk with me to this day. Over the years, I think some of them have switched out, new ones have come in, old ones have moved on. But the teachings are still there. They're still valuable. They're still powerful. When I sit one on one with clients, they're there. They're there to help guide the session. They're there to help to guide the flow of information coming through. They're an important part of the work I do. When I do seance, they're there. They're there to help facilitate communication, help to protect the space, help to move me into a place so that I can communicate with the spirits and help other people learn too. And you know what? They sometimes show up in channeled messages. Sometimes they just want to come in, speak what they need to speak, and let it carry through. Now, an interesting thing about that communication, the way they talk, I wish it could be like you and I talking, just one on one with words that are simple and clear, but it's not. They communicate in like downloads, gnosis. They'll give me a packet of information. They'll give me these concepts and ideas that I have to unpack and I have to interpret and I have to apply it because they don't exist in a time space that we understand as linear time. They exist in a place where there's no time. So all of their communication is nonlinear, it's instantaneous. I start to ask a question, they respond in full before I finish the question, and I've got this packet of information that unpacks, and I'm like, oh, it's called claircognizance, that inner gnosis, that inner knowing of information. That's how they talk. And because it is so nonlinear, they don't use names, they don't use dates. Sometimes I'll get an impression or an idea of a place or a time period, but I'll get information about people, who they were, what their demeanor was like, how they liked to dress, what their attitude was like. I will get some of this more non-linear, non-concrete information that is still just as valuable, still just as important. And there's only one thing I've noticed they don't like. They don't like it to have proof. They don't want people to say, well, what's this name? What's this special pet name? What's a special code word? Or what would they always tell me? They don't want to prove themselves with stuff that you would see in like a laboratory. What card am I looking at? Oh, it's a picture of a sun. Oh, great. What card am I looking at? It's a square. Great. They don't want to do that kind of work. They're not here to prove themselves, but they are here to let you test and validate the information that they give you. They give me too. And that's an important part of the work. It's not proving, but validating. Now, here's something interesting coming up. They want to talk to you. They want to communicate with more people. They've been asking me to. They show up at seances. They've been asking me to bring more of this channeled messages to the people, and I'm going to oblige. So I want you to stay tuned to this channel because I'm going to be doing regular sessions where the whispers speak. It's going to start off with some of their teaching, some of the information they want to bring forward, and then I'm going to open it to you where you can ask a question. You can ask a question about stuff going on in your personal life. They love it if you're going to ask questions about spiritual matters, what's going on in the world, some of these bigger topics. That's where they like to focus. We can talk about personal things, and that's okay, but they would rather talk about some of these bigger topics, some of these bigger things that are going on with the world, with us, with spirituality, and they want to bring that forward. And so I'm extending that invitation to you. Stay tuned to this channel. We're going to be tuning into the whispers and let the whispers speak. And I want you to be a part of that. Hail.